Why do certain teachers, Reiki practitioners, choose to follow the chakra pattern when they address the Reiki self-treatment or treatment on others? Why do they choose to use the hand positions following the chakra pattern? Why don't they choose the traditional hand positions or other forms of hand positions? After all, chakras were not a part of Reiki now, were they? Hi there, I'm Vlad from ReikiScoop.com, and today we will talk a little bit about why practitioners and teachers alike follow the chakra hand positions pattern when offering self-treatment to themselves or offering Reiki treatment on others. What's the benefit? What's the importance? Why choose this instead of traditional Reiki hand positions? Before we get into that, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe so that other Reiki enthusiasts can find content such as this one for the Reiki knowledge and experience. With that being said, let's dive in. I was mentioning chakras, the chakra pattern, so to speak, following the hand positions using the chakra pattern. Why would you do that? Besides, after all, chakras were not part of the Reiki traditional teachings, and they are still not part of it, to be very honest with you. So I'm a Reiki teacher. Why would I follow that when it's not part of the tradition itself? Why would I follow that knowing that they don't really match in theory, but do they match in practice? Well, here's the thing. Of course, chakras were not part of the traditional Reiki systems or teachings or practice initially, because Reiki comes from Japan. The Japanese had no vision or knowledge about the chakras, and that's okay. They had other elements that they addressed. When it comes to the power centers or vortexes of energy, they considered the one where the third eye is right now, the head. The second where the heart is, corresponding to the heart chakra, but that was an energy center. They didn't consider it a chakra per se. And the one that's below the navel, and that was the vital energy source, the inner energy source. So they had the mind, the soul, and the inner self, the spirit. And that being said, those were the only centers, the only vortexes that they considered as the only places that would resemble what we know as chakras today. So that's out of the way that we had to mention that. Second, they used to follow a traditional set of hand positions that was addressing organs, that were addressing energy channels, meridians in this case, that were addressing joints, bones, and soft tissue. And that was a great way of addressing Reiki, and it still is, and I still promote it quite a lot. In fact, one of my articles regarding the Reiki hand positions follows 90% the traditional Reiki hand positions. Still, I do promote, and I'm not the only one, I'm sure, as a Reiki teacher or practitioner or enthusiast even, that promotes the hand positions following the chakra pattern. What are the chakras? In short, I'm not going to make this video about the chakras, but in short, they are vortexes of energy. But that means that they are gates through which energy exits and energy enters. And there are 7 primary chakras, each one governing a certain area of the body and governing aspects of that area that correspond to that area of the body. Attributes, elements, from health to energetic health, from physical health to energetic health to spiritual health. Those are the crown, the third eye with back projection, the throat with back projection, heart with back projection, solar plexus with back projection, sacral below the navel with back projection, and the root chakra. The root and the crown are a projection by themselves. They don't have a proper projection. So why follow this pattern? Placing the hand positions on the chakras. Because the chakras are one of the main components of the energetic anatomy of a human and of many other beings. But we're talking about humans right now. So the chakras are one of the main components of the energetic anatomy, but they are not just vortexes of energy. It's true, as I mentioned, energy exits and enters through these chakras. Both vital energy, universal life force energy, energy from around you, they are the interface through which you can relate to the outside world, through which your energetic layers interact with the outside world. Each chakra has very complex components. In fact, I would go so far as to mention that each of these primary chakras, there are more than that, just to make a parenthesis, there are secondary chakras for each organ, joint, for the ears, eyes, a lot of them, but let's talk a little bit about the primary chakras. Each one of them represent a gate of consciousness. When your vital energy reaches each level of these chakras, they encounter certain qualities or imbalances, potentials, or things to be healed, because we have emotions, feelings, thoughts. We feel things, we express them, or sometimes we don't express them. But if you notice, another parenthesis, that all your feelings and emotions can be felt through this axis of the body. You won't feel love here. You won't feel grief here. You won't feel fear in your palm. You will feel fear in the solar plexus. You will feel love and compassion from the heart. You will feel grief in your heart area and in your throat area even. You want to express something and you are unable to do it. You feel like a knot, like something is tight within the throat, isn't it? When you express it, you feel released from the heart and from the throat area. When you want to think, when you want to absorb something that's related to knowledge and you overthink, you feel it here. When you have maybe too much vital energy, sexual energy, you feel it in the lower chakras, the lower area of the body. All those feelings and emotions can be felt within a center axis, right? And I would go as far as say that the mind does not generate these emotions. The mind processes these emotions, but that's a story for another time. So all those feelings and emotions are on this axis. And that's why one of the reasons you should address Reiki following the chakra pattern, not all the time, but at least sometimes. 1 out of 3 self-treatment sessions should be focused on the chakras. Focused in a sense that you follow the pattern of the chakras with the back projection if possible. If not, the front ones will do fine for now, because you need a bit of mobility to place it on the back, and maybe you don't have that, and that's okay. Even I don't have that sometimes. According to my aches and pains, everybody has that. So you don't need to force yourself if you cannot address the back projections physically. Your intention is what matters the most. And here comes the interesting part. I mentioned that we follow the chakra pattern for releasing and healing emotions, feelings, traumas, information and energy attributed to those traumas, energy and information that we have, that it has been projected upon us maybe, and it's not always beneficial, or maybe it is beneficial, maybe it's too much, maybe we are overwhelmed with gratitude, who knows, and maybe it's an imbalance sometimes. You never know how imbalances are felt for each and every person. They can become overwhelmed with too much of positive or too much of negative. Sometimes we need a balance between them. We balance the chakras out for vital energy flow, for universal energy flow, for connecting with ourselves, first of all, and with the outside world much better. Each one representing a gate, a level of consciousness through which we can express ourselves in a different way, and we have different elements to heal or acknowledge and integrate or promote within each of those levels. The third eye has certain elements. The solar plexus has certain elements. The navel, the sacral chakra has different elements. I'm not going to go into details for each and every chakras. I'm here to explain why certain, and quite a lot actually, of practitioners and teachers address the chakra pattern. Here comes the complicated element. I mentioned intention, remember, and I wanted to come back to it. When you address the chakras, and when you address Reiki in general, and any spiritual practice, you have an intention. But Reiki specifically functions a lot on intention. So, when you use the traditional hand positions, aren't you already addressing areas of the body where the chakras are? You do. But what differentiates this approach, the traditional hand positions, from the chakra hand positions is intention. Don't get me wrong, you're gonna address the chakra inevitably to some extent when you practice the traditional hand positions, even if your focus is not on the chakras, is on the organs, tissue, muscles, and all that. We are going to address the chakras to some extent as well. But your intention is not that. Your intention is not to address the chakras when you practice the Reiki self-treatment using the traditional hand positions. Your intention is to address the traditional hand positions, to address the organs, tissues, organs, and such. Before we continue, I want to drop a quick reminder for those of you drawn to Reiki symbols you haven't been attuned to. Maybe you felt curious or even connected to certain symbols, but hesitated because you thought you weren't ready or didn't have the right training. I used to think that way too. But over the years, I realized there's no such thing as perfect preparation. It's far more powerful to follow your intuition and let your curiosity lead the way. You can work with any symbol to some extent just by meditating on its shape and experimenting with it in daily life. By this, you begin to build a relationship with its energy. In fact, that's what I recommend even for the symbols you are attuned to, because true integration comes from experience, not just ceremony. That's why I created the Ultimate Reiki Symbols Guide, a practical resource with 65 Reiki symbols, their meanings, uses, and how to integrate them in your practice even without a formal attunement. This guide opens the door to deeper exploration and growth without waiting for the perfect moment. So, if you're ready to go beyond the standard 3 and start working with the symbols you truly resonate with, grab the digital copy on Reiki Scoop or the physical book on Amazon. Now, let's return to the video. So the energy flows more focused, more directed, guided towards those parts, the physical parts in this case of the body. Which means that you are partially addressing the chakras, because the way you guide, the way you intend, the way you channel the universal energy matters. You do channel it either way. You're going to influence. When you address the chakra, when you use the chakra pattern, the hand positions using the chakra pattern, are you addressing also the physical elements, the organs, tissue and such? Yes, but to some extent, because you're addressing the chakras this time. Your intention is clear for guiding the universal energy for the chakras, which means that most of it will flow towards those energy centers, which means that you are addressing that gate of consciousness, that place of vortex of energy, through which energy comes in and out. So you can address by all means the traditional hand positions. Your intention will matter and will direct itself towards those areas of the body that correspond to the traditional hand positions. That being said, when you decide to use the chakra pattern, you will notice a bit of a difference. Maybe sometimes you will feel fatigued. Maybe sometimes you'll feel over-energized. Maybe sometimes you'll feel just a little bit tired, or just a little bit bored, or just a bit too calm, because it's a more profound experience in my perspective addressing the chakras for the reasons I mentioned. They are gates of consciousness. When you address the traditional hand positions, you feel calm, you feel at peace, you feel more balanced. It's a paradox a little bit, because addressing the gates of consciousness, the chakras, implies a deeper healing on a spiritual level, on a deep psychic level. When you use Reiki for the traditional hand positions, you do have energetic cleansing. You do have a part of its spiritual healing and cleansing. But again, because you are having the intention of doing that and not addressing the gates of consciousness specifically, that's why you have a different experience and a different feeling. Can you address both within one session? Of course, they should be clear. Now I'm addressing the heart as an organ, but I'm also leaving a few minutes, a couple of minutes or 2-3 minutes at least for the chakra. You should add it alongside the traditional hand positions, which takes a bit more time. One friend of mine that had seminars in the weekends for beginners, he was using first the chakra pattern, continuing the self-treatment with the organs, following the traditional hand positions. So we're like 2 sets in one session for addressing all the parts of the body. It takes longer, but that's really something to take into consideration when practicing Reiki, because that's a more complete spectrum of elements that you're approaching: physical, emotional, mental, energetical, spiritual, you're addressing all of them at that point. Again, it takes longer, but it will be worth it to see the effects. See how it feels. Use the chakra pattern, use the traditional hand position pattern, and then use both and see how that feels. And you can add even, I would urge you to add even a third one, the intuitive part. Maybe you feel like you should place your hands on areas that don't really correspond to any of those patterns. Use that as well. Again, a bit more time, but it's worth it. So, even if the chakras, in conclusion, were not part of the traditional Reiki systems, approaches, practices, they were added later on, that's true, but they are not a new age concept. The idea with the new age is really ridiculous. They are a millenary concept. They are at least 1,000 years, the concept of chakras. From written text, we don't know what was before. And you can search about that. You don't have to believe me, you can search. They are between 800 and 1,000 years old as a concept in written text. Again, much more information could have been before that. So, they were blended, quote-unquote, blended into the Reiki practice because Reiki is very flexible and it helps multiple areas, multiple perception, multiple approaches, even multiple other practices, spiritual practices. It complements them. It helps them boost their ability to offer what they offer, healing and flow of energy. So addressing Reiki, addressing the chakras with Reiki is really very efficient. It's not the only way, and I will never support the idea that it's part of the traditional Reiki, but I will support the idea that it works very well and it can help heal certain aspects that perhaps maybe traditional Reiki did not address or did not know about it to be addressed in the first place. So consider that. Addressing the chakras, it's nothing wrong. It's for your healing. Reiki is not linear to follow only a certain one-way path. Reiki is a broad concept. And remember, placing the hands is not a century-old Reiki-related concept. Placing your hands on the body is also a millenary concept. Reiki, the thing that Reiki did was for creating a more systematized, a more efficient practice, having a more clear concept and idea about what happens and how to place the hand positions on the body, what are the effects and why you should use it. It's a more focused, more detailed, more structured way of using the hands for your body. So incorporate the chakras, let me know how it feels, consider it, have an open mind, and do it also versus the traditional hand positions, and then use both the chakra pattern and the traditional hand positions. Notice how that feels. So, with that being said, remember to hit the like button, subscribe if you liked and enjoyed this video so that other Reiki enthusiasts can find content such as this one for their knowledge and experience. What's your experience with Reiki hand positions? What are you using? Which pattern? Are you just being intuitive? Are you using the hand positions, or are you already incorporating the idea of chakra pattern? Let me know in the comments. And thank you so much for watching until the end. Blessings to you, and I'll see you in the next one. Before you go, there's one last thing I want to share to support your Reiki journey. If you feel alone in your practice, like no one understands this part of your life, this message is for you. Maybe you're the only one in your circle who practices Reiki. Maybe you miss the feeling of sharing energy experiences and growth with like-minded people. And without this connection, it's easy to feel isolated, lose motivation, and let the practice fade into the background of your life. That's why I created the 21 Reiki Challenge, a free program where we get to practice Reiki together for 21 days. You'll receive a lesson every day where you can follow along a complete self-treatment, ask questions, and rebuild your habits through guided support. Over 2,000 Reiki enthusiasts took on the challenge and reconnected both with universal life force energy and themselves. If you're tired of walking this path alone, click the link in the description below, sign up, and let's practice Reiki together. Join the 21 Reiki Challenge to foster spiritual growth alongside like-minded people just like you.